Fellow tennis nerds, I hope you are well. I'm here with Daniel. The last time we did this, we talked about heavy rackets, if I believe correctly. We're under the ball tree. And today we're going to talk about transitioning to modern rackets. We have a modern racket here, which is the Pure Drive. It's been around for a long time, but this is the latest one. And no offense to Prince, but this is kind of old school in a way because of the very thin beam and the very high flex. And even the crossbar here. So that's kind of like symbolizes old school rackets. And Daniel has made a crazy transition. If you go back to my first video with you, we started like talking Pro Staff 90. We went to Prince Phantom 93P, which is what you played then.
Yeah.
And what's happened since?
The last racket or the final racket, I don't know. I'm playing right now.
No final racket.
There's no final racket. This is the Pure Drive 100 actually.
This one is the Wimbledon edition.
Yes.
It's the dark one. Usually it's white, but it's a little bit dark. I also have one of these.
I liked it.
And you customize it a bit heavier than I have mine here, which is more the standard edition. But for you, okay, you ended up here. Last time we made videos about your racket, we were playing the Aero 98, so this is going even for more power. And it's been for you like a whole transition of going from like maximum control, I would say, like Pro Staff 19, Prince 93P, pretty flexible, to this like power machine beast kind of racket. How has that been for you?
It's a journey. I think the most important thing about this journey is the mental part. For me, like transitioning to this. I always played with these kind of players frame, and you feel like, okay, this has great feel. You work for the shots. You have a great feel when you get the balls on impact. But tennis is evolving, and then you play against players who grew up with these rackets, play with them. And when you play competitively, you have to really work hard to win matches or points even in these kind of matches.
And most younger guys, sorry to interrupt you, like most younger guys today obviously grow up playing with Arrows or Drives or Wilson Ultras or E-Zones and V-Cores. And then we go and we play with a Prestige, you know, and then it's like you're already at a disadvantage with this situation, right?
Especially on clay. When you play on clay, then you really have to work for the points, and you're always on the back foot. And I'm more like an attacking player. I like to dictate the point and dictate how the match is going. And when I cannot do that and I have to grind it out, that's not where I have fun on the court. Like I'm more the attacking player, and when you cannot do that anymore, then this is when I started thinking, okay, maybe I have to change something. But the thing is, like psychologically, that you really have to commit to this if you want to do it. Like I was hesitating first, and then I went back as well to the I played also the Angel 97.
Yeah,
was also like this was also some kind of transition. I went back to this when I went to the Aero VS, but then at the end I decided to play with the Aero VS. But I wanted to feel that I can play simple tennis on the court. And this is what I can do with this now. Like this makes life so much easier. There are drawbacks 100% because there's no perfect racket. You will find your optimum what you want to find. But this is where I feel it's easier for me to play tennis, and I have more fun on the court with this as well. Like I'm not the grinder anymore. Now I can again dictate points on every surface if I want to. So this is what I like. The thing that you lose with these kind of rackets, and like I read this, when you lose something, it feels twice as bad as what you gain with it.
Yeah, because we are like more prone to holding on to belongings. I think that or emotions and people and whatever than just going for something new. It's always more painful to go for something new than to hold on what you have, right? Like it's like Stockholm syndrome. We're living in a permanent Stockholm syndrome.
100%.
And like, I think with rackets as well, right?
You work and work and work, and you have zero output, and then you take this racket and you have amazing output, but you feel like, oh, my drop shot is not so good anymore because the feel in the string bed is not as good. Then you start thinking, is this the right thing? Then you play, you miss a lot at the beginning. When you transition with the racket, you have to give it some time, right? It's not that you pick it up and then you're like, okay, almost everything went well.
No, because it's quite more powerful.
Yeah, you need a few weeks to get used to this, or even more. But you always feel like, okay, I'm missing the drop shots and the volleys, maybe the touch shots are not that good. My slice feels better with the different racket. But what you usually don't see at the start is that you gain like 5 kilometers per hour on the serve, or 10, or you gain more penetration on the court with the ground stroke because you're not under pressure anymore. You can play way more neutral balls where you're not getting pushed all the time. And this is what you don't feel at the start. So I think this is the first thing. The second thing is also like when you start going to a different racket that you always blame the racket when something is going wrong. So not your footwork, it's not your fault. It's like the racket is not good, and then you pick up the other racket and
That's
you
why
feel
you
like,
miss,
okay,
yeah.
this, yeah. And then you always go back to this, like this is a vicious cycle, I think, at the end. And I told myself, okay, I feel when I hit with this, I have more fun. I can play aggressive tennis. I want to commit to this. And then it took me, I think, at least 6 weeks, something like this, to get used to this. But it was not like I went from the 93P to Pure Drive 100. It's a transition with a few rackets that I went
It's a progression,
through.
really.
Yes.
Like you're going from like a 90 to 93, then to 95, then to 97,
Yeah.
then to 98, and now you're at 100. That's pretty much like with some in-betweens, but also the TFX1 you used for a while and stuff like this. But it's really 90, 93, 95, because you played the Prince 95 as well
Yes,
for a while, and
at
then
some
97.
point,
So you tried every head size pretty much, except going like, this is an oversized racket, right? So this is 107. That's, I think, interesting because like we're at a point where I think you're going to see more and more pros playing with hundreds. It's about hundreds. Could be arrows, could be V-cores. We saw Vachereau play with the V-core 100, you know.
Yeah.
And many players on the WTA tour are already using 100 square inches since a long time, but also on the men's tour now with the balls being not so great, and they want to hit through these super athletes that are running, playing defense on the other side. But then there's obviously a line to be crossed when there's a huge trade-off to control, right? So if you would go maybe 105, then of course you get more power, you get maybe a bit more even lift on the ball, but then maybe it gets too difficult to control. So finding that medium where you get like enough control from the string bed. In this case, I think the drive is very controlled for 100.
100%.
And I think that helps a lot. You know, to transition to a racket that has a more open string pattern, 100 can take longer and require you to adjust too much of your technique. This one you can hit quite flat and aggressive, and still it does deliver more depth. So you have to adjust your depth a bit, you know.
Yeah, but still, I think that the transition to these kind of rackets also requires you to think about your technique a bit more.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And like strangely, I felt that it makes my technique better because, like before, with a smaller head size, and with a more flexible racket, you can hit through, and even if you have some slight mishits or the technique is not that great, the ball still goes in because you don't have that much power. When you hit with this and you like do something wrong or you're not in the right place, then this thing is bouncing at the fence. So I think this is also part of the transition, thinking about like how can I adjust my technique and make my technique better, cleaner, maybe to adjust to the power you get.
It's an interesting topic we discussed the other day, because my take on like control rackets now, it's almost that for club players, amateur players who are not playing that often, maybe twice a week, or you know, maybe a slightly lower intermediate level or up to lower advanced level, they like control rackets because you can swing whatever swing and with using a lot of arm, and the ball still dips in because you have the control. Like, so the ball is gonna just land in some way or other. While with this one, you actually really need to have like a compact and think about every part of your swing, because if you're starting to do a lot of weird things, like you said, you rocket launch the ball, so it's tougher to control the power, and that's why it requires usually a better player than if you have a control racket. That's why many club players want 98s, 95s, because it's easier to control. So it's a little bit, the market is a bit weird. They're pushing very powerful racket to amateurs, while I think you need to be quite advanced to control a powerful racket. Yeah. So that's you have to kind of flip the whole thing on its head and say, okay, yeah, you're a club player, you want to be able to swing, you don't have all the mechanics right, then maybe it's better to use more control, but then you transition to more power because you can control the power. But obviously, if you start playing tennis as a kid, the power is good to be able to learn to control early, right? Yes. But it's tougher for guys that are coming from pro staffs, prestiges, all these types of rackets, because they're used to being able to do whatever with the swing and the footwork maybe, and the ball somehow goes in anyway, right? Even if it's not a heavy shot or whatever, right?
Yeah. When I thought about transitioning to a different racket, it almost felt like I'm throwing away part of my identity as a tennis player.
Yeah, this is a thing, yeah.
And this is when I said this is the mental part that is the most challenging for me, or was the most challenging for me, is like, okay, in my head I was always the small head size guy with the aggressive play and just hitting through.
And you have very clean, good technique. So probably like also Roger fan, you know, as I am.
Yeah.
And I think Roger ruined a lot of players. I mean, not his fault, but because like it's so difficult to play the way he played, and he played that way quite a long time ago now, and now he's playing a 98 then with the RF line, or before that 97. But it looks so fantastic when you can control it. But then the level of athleticism and technique and timing and everything you need to play with that type of racket and actually generate power, it's crazy. It's like it's
and
not,
like
efficient.
Sinner is the best player in the world right now, and he has a 100 square inch racket.
Yep.
And no one would say, okay, this guy is not moving well, and that's why he needs a 100 square inch racket and needs help from his racket. He just uses the racket, he uses the power he gets
and
to destroy everyone right
connected to the racket. So he has developed his game with the racket, right? Like you can see it. He couldn't play his kind of very using the racket as a whip technique with a 90. There's no chance in hell. He would have played a completely different game, more up there. But now he can whip the racket a bit more, and that's also with Alcaraz. His racket has formed his game a little bit, So this is why it might take time to transition, but it's probably worth doing the investment if you're open to doing it. You have to be ready to maybe sacrifice a match, maybe even, because you need to play it in match play. Even if you play with this in training for a whole year, and then you play a match, you will feel completely different, because a match and training is two completely different things.
Yeah.
So you need to sacrifice a bit of that comfort feeling and maybe winning a match that you should win. But then in the end, it will improve, right? But it's difficult to sacrifice that part.
Yeah, and I think the focus should shift on the output, that you feel what is happening on the other side of the court when I hit the ball. And then you will feel, okay, there's difference, I have more penetration, I have more power, and if you can control it at some point, if you adjust to it, physically, mentally, technically, then you will probably have more fun on the court. But the thing is, like, this transition phase is so difficult to get through mentally, especially when you're like, okay, do I really want to go for a 100 square inch racket? Am I going to do it? Like, I feel like a grandpa now that I'm going to 100 square inch racket.
There's a stigma around it. Like
100%, this is so bad. Like, and you feel it especially around like older players, like the players that are like close to their, I don't say any years because then I offend people.
It's fine.
But when you have older people, older people like me, they grew up with these kind of very heavy controlled frames, especially like they're pretty soft. Like I strung 28 kilos on a polyester string because the rackets were so soft you could do it. And then you have this, you're playing a 100 square inch racket now, what you're not moving on the court anymore, or what is happening to you, right? This is, and you would never say this to a pro in the top 100, and a lot of these guys
or
play
anyone
Aero 100.
If we compare to golf, right, like it has some similarities to tennis, and a lot of tennis players are keen golfers. They always look for more from their equipment, like they look for a driver that has a little bit more give. They have rules about how much give you can have, because the trampolining in the driver is not allowed. Then, like, they even have rules with that, and they look for like, how can I make the putter so that it moves more like this, so I will not pull it or push it, and make the ball go there or there. So there's always like technological advances, but in tennis somehow we are usually like a little bit apprehensive, we don't, but the tennis should be played with wooden rackets on grass courts, and we should have long pants on and stuff. But it's changing, balls are changing, courts are changing, the game is evolving, and people need to be fitter to play like on a higher level. So they need better preparation, better sleep, and a better everything. So why not use a more powerful racket to get more from the racket? You still need to put in a lot of work. It's not like this is driving the whole thing, but it gives you a bit of help when you're actually putting your effort into the ball, right? Like the output, like you said. And the one good way to measure output is to talk to your opponent, or you can measure it if you have like you're in a smart court here, they have a Zenith court, they could be wing field, they could be swing vision. But you could also talk to your opponents if you have hitting partners, like, do you feel like the ball is tougher? And I usually get that feedback if I play with the Aero, if I play with a racket like this, my old Prestige or something, is that, this is much tougher to deal with, like I'm getting less time. And the same I feel with you is like, this one, when you're connecting with the pure drive, I'm like, okay, the point is over. I'm not like in the point anymore, like with the Prestige, maybe I have a time to get one more point over, but here it's quicker,
Yeah, I think we as human beings are generally, we like security and we don't like to change, and I think it's even more accentuated in tennis. People are a bit more conservative and traditional, and
traditional sport,
I don't want to change a lot, but like, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to just go on the court and have fun and want the same feeling like for the next 20 years, then take your old racket and go for it. But if you like somewhat competitive, you want to win more matches, you want to maybe have an easier time on the court, then I think you should consider going to a more like to a modern frame basically, and to see what these kind of incremental changes brought to the table basically in tennis, right? It's it's the same. You wouldn't buy the first iPhone right now, right?
No.
And say, okay, I will use it. You use something else. You use something modern because it has some features that you like. Maybe there are features that you don't like. Maybe the phones are getting too big for you right now, but it's like they have some advantages, and I think this is what you have in tennis as well. You can think about it and find your optimal racket. One thing to mention as well is that when you go to a different racket, you also have to think about your string choice, which is very important, I think, because the string is like, I think, 50% of the racket.
Yeah, that's how I say. I mean, I usually get pushback on that, but like if you have a shit string in a racket, it ruins the whole racket. It loses. I mean, if the string has no tension, or it's just a bad string or too much tension, then the racket doesn't work, right? So it's like it's the engine of the racket. That's what usually string companies say, but it's definitely 50%, because without a good string, it's not a good racket anymore. And even if you measure surface area, this is quite big surface, and you compare it, like it makes sense that the string is important. It touches the ball, right? So.
Yeah. And this is what I also needed to do. Like, I couldn't use the same string I used before, because I needed to think about which string suits the racket. And I think, like, for me personally, if I have a stiff racket or a stiff, powerful racket, then I need a very dead string, but at low tension.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to hurt your arm probably, and make it more of a board, right?
Yeah. Then it's too boardy if you string too high. But if the string is too lively in this pure drive, you cannot control it anymore, because then the ball is just shooting out. With a dead string, it's fine, low tension, then I don't get any arm issues. I don't feel anything.
This is actually, I must say, like we're going to get to the best rackets of the year on the channel soon. But this one released this year, of course, the Wimbledon edition, the normal edition. This is very well dampened. Like it's like I played with it pretty high tension, stiff 3-string Vivo in mine. He has the Dunlop stiff spin strings, and no issues with the arm on my end. And the 98 is a bit more hard on you, right? Like it's smaller head, so you have to hit it better. But it's also you play with that as well. Like
it's dense. Also, the string pattern is denser, right? Yeah.
1620, quite dense. So it can be a bit hard. Even the arrow can be a bit hard, but this one, like the dampening is very well done, right? So, and also they've reduced, if you see the string recommendation, I've seen it here, 21 to 25 kilos. I think you can sometimes even go lower than 21, but in this racket, I think like around 22, 23 makes sense, and which is what you've been doing, around 22. I did 24, 23. I felt like it played better when it dropped a bit. So even players with 100 square inch rackets on tour, and we're not talking about tour here, but on tour, they're even playing relatively humane tensions. Like, I mean, some guys will go up to 55, which is 25 kilos. Like Pericard is hitting beast balls, you know, and Alcaraz and these guys. But a lot of guys are going below that.
Yeah, it's also what you get used to. I think you can go up higher in tension, but then obviously you cannot go 2 kilos and then feel like I'm doing it. Like you need incremental changes, and then you get there. Yeah.
And it's the same with, like, if you want to reduce tension, you don't start by dropping like 5 kilos. You go like 1 or 2 kilos, and then you keep feeling, okay, now I can control, I'm adjusting to this. Adjustment, like with Daniel's racket progression, it has to be incremental. For me, also easier now to play with the pure drive when I've been playing with the arrow for a while. If I've just jumped from my old Prestige to this, is like a huge step, right? And it will be very difficult to get used to, right? So you need to make everything in a progressional way.
Yeah, and then when you have this kind of crazy change from a Prestige to a pure drive, you play for the first 10 minutes and you miss every ball basically, because the muscle memory is there. You play like you play with a Prestige, and then everything is flying. So if you want to commit, if you find a racket, okay, this could help, and then you give it some time. You need a few weeks basically. That's why I think it's difficult to just test a racket for 2 hours and say I like it or not. You feel it straight away if this could be a racket for you or not, but you need like a bit more time with it. That's why I usually try to buy them on like eBay used or something, and then I have them for, I don't know, 4 weeks, and then I can hit a bit, and if I don't like them, I sell again, and if I like it, then I keep it, right? So.
Yeah, that's how I started with the whole tennis nerd thing. It's like you buy, sell, trade, right? Like you're buying rackets, and you sell them. If you don't like them, you trade them with someone else, and then you can try a lot of rackets, which is not recommended, but that's one way to figure out, okay, I'm curious about the pure drive. You don't have to go and buy it maybe for 200 euros at Tennis Warehouse. You can actually buy it used for a bit less, and then you can resell it for pretty much the same value unless you start scratching it a big time. But yeah, if you're careful about what you're doing. So then you have you have to ship it and maybe go to the post office a few times, but otherwise easy peasy.
Yeah, even if you play with a racket like for 4 weeks and you lose 20 euros, it's completely fine. Then you get a feeling, then you know how this racket is, and maybe it's a racket for you.
Yeah. So in this sense, yeah, it makes sense. But you have to be open to the process, and I know a lot of you guys watching this are like stuck in this eternal hell of not finding your racket. Sometimes it's because it's fun to be in this hell, like it's fun to test new rackets. I can relate to that. Partly I have to be in that situation, but it's also easy, like you said, that you don't really want to leave your current frame, and that's a very tough choice to make. Like, okay, if you're playing with the Prestige, you love the Prestige, even if it's not maybe working as well as it has or working well anymore, it's still gonna be tough to say, okay, I'm gonna go to a Pure Drive or a Pure Aero or a E-Zone or something that is easier to play with, right? But over time, I think results will be better.
Yeah, I think you have to be open-minded. The mental aspect is crazy in that. Like you're so connected to this old school feel, and like you define yourself as a player around this on the court. And this is, I think, the toughest thing, that you get like open-minded and say, okay, I will test this and I will not judge myself for doing it. And if I have fun with it, then maybe I stick to it, even if I feel weird at the beginning.
Yeah, because it might feel weird. It's funny also with rackets. I talked about this topic with Henrik all the time, and we tried the Yonex DR98 Plus, which is like a iconic racket, the DR98. Everybody's like hyping that up. I've also hyped it up maybe 10 years ago. But rackets, in my opinion, I've said this before on the channel, they are improving, and I think this is the best Pure Drive. Like if I go back to try older Pure Drives, I have them. I have the 1st generation, I have the 5th generation, whatever, and this is the 11th generation, if I'm not mistaken. They have improved. The better dampening, no issues with comfort, it's not too muted. The spring pattern is kind of perfect. Like you get some lift, but it's kind of dense in the middle. Same with E-Zones. I feel like the newer E-Zones are better than the older ones in generally. And the DR98, like we played the Plus one, but I also tried the regular one. We didn't feel like there was any special magic in this racket when we tried it. It was just very low launch angle and quite difficult racket to use overall, right?
Yeah, 100%. I didn't like it at all compared to the new ones.
No.
And I felt it was kind of weird, flexy, not really soft, but not harsh as well. So I was not a fan of this. And back in the day, everybody was hyping this racket up, like, oh, this is one of the greatest and all-time classic and whatever. But when you you're open-minded and you test new rackets, there are some really good ones out there.
This is a great frame. I like it a lot, but there are other good frames in this category, like E-Zone 100. Great, you've tried that. You said that this could be a switch for you if you had to switch away from the drive. Same with the Dunlop FX500, the new one, the version 3 that's coming out now. It's also very good.
Yeah,
so
very good racket.
There are good rackets in this category, giving you a little bit different options. So you have to demo and see. And you don't maybe need to go all the way straight up to 100. You can start 98, try from there, and then see how that goes. You know. But I feel like in this case, I prefer the 100 over the 98, which I probably said in my review earlier as well.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we can talk about as well is the string pattern. I think this is really important when you go to these kind of rackets. I think I can play with the Pure Drive because the string pattern is like pretty dense and very, very controlled for a power frame. So you get the power, but you can still control the power pretty well. If you have a more open string pattern, then the ball is flying on you way, way more.
Yes.
And then maybe you feel like, okay, I can't play with power rackets. Maybe it's not the power rackets, maybe it's the string pattern that you have in this kind of racket. So there are so many variables that you have to think about when you think about switching to a power frame. And I would like encourage not to give up too quickly on that and then like, okay, I played with one of them and I don't like them. And then
they're all the same, right?
Like if you want to change, you have to test a few and you have to give it some time to adjust to that.
I think usually the spin racket is what people struggle with, and for a reason, right? Like, so this one is dense. That's the power is more through the court. Like that's the whole power category. E-Zone also very dense. FX500 pretty dense, a little bit more open. But when you get the Aeros and V-cores and these spin rackets, then the ball will have a little bit more of a higher launch. And if you struggle with that, this is understandable. That's a more of a transition than going to this one. You know, like this the ball at least goes pretty flat. So you can shorten the swing, probably keep your swing the way it is and adjust a little bit. But with the spin rackets, you probably need to adjust a bit more overall if you're coming from like pro staffs, for example?
Yeah, it also depends on the grip that you play, right?
Yeah.
If you have like a more traditional Eastern grip or maybe a semi-Western that is not too extreme, then maybe like pure drives, E-zones are better for you
Yeah.
because they are like not that launchy. Like these young guys play with pretty extreme grips, like,
Yeah, and also
like
a lot of
the
like
Western
this
grips.
stuff.
Yeah. So for them, it's normal to just brush up on the ball. But this is difficult maybe with an Eastern grip to control that. So I think when you're like a prestige user or an old school racket user, maybe the drives and the E-zones are easier to transition to go to a 98, then test it with lower tensions, 100%, because the rackets are way stiffer than you're used to, so you need to go to low tension strings.
Yep.
But this is, I think, an easier transition than going to an arrow, for example, because this one is made for the spin, and if you don't have the spin game, then it's not the perfect racket, I think, then.
No, it would be difficult. So the power rackets generally is like an easier choice because of their dense patterns. So it's good to keep that in mind. Although arrows can be really addictive, like the 98 with the 1620, but then it does have a launch, so you have to be prepared. And the most common comment I get about the arrow, because everybody's hyping the arrow for a good reason, it's a good racket, we both used it, is that the part when you want to hit the ball flat, you almost need to force the racket not to do something a little bit extra because it's so vertically like minded, right? The racket wants to do this. With this one, it goes more here, right? So it's like you need to be able to play a bit and experiment, like you said, and feel it. Okay, this suits me more, but being a modern version of what I already played, right?
Yeah.
So, and no offense to you if you like prestigious PT57As or pro staffs. We also like those rackets. We came for those rackets. We're just giving you a little bit to think about in terms of like, you can probably get a bit more out of your game with a modern racket. Whether you like it or not, completely up to you. And I know there's so many purists out there that like, oh, I love my PT57A, I will never trade it.
I love my wooden racket.
Yeah, wooden racket. And I will not sell my PT57As because I love playing with them sometimes, but in a match situation, there's no doubt what I play the better with, right? So.
Yeah, when we tested racket in the last few weeks, like some of them, and when I go back to a kind of more, even modern, more traditional frame, like I have to work so hard on the court to get the same penetration, because I can see that like back to back when I switch to my racket and go to another like more control frame. And then I feel like, man, I need my footwork, like I need to work so much harder. The sweet spot is so much smaller. Like everything is more difficult on the court. And then you're getting exhausted like after 20 minutes when you could play for an hour with your own racket.
Yeah,
so this is what I feel, like it makes it easier. When I'm hitting drop shots or going to the net or slicing or whatever, these old rackets are really good for that and they feel nice. So I understand that this feel is better compared to my pure drive. And I would 100% agree with that. But the overall output, like general in game, serving, returning, the most important shots are so much easier with the pure drive. So.
And there are in-between options. We're not talking that you have to play with pure drives. We have a Speed MP here, which is another relatively easy to use racket. We've both tested the Pro version, which I think suits us. We talk about dense string pattern, right? And the Pro version, although not being close to the same penetration of the court and power you're getting from this one, it's a good way to get into maybe trying this one or E-zone or whatever, or it's at least more forgiving and more powerful than maybe playing with a 95 or a 98, you know. So this is like 100, which 23, so a bit thinner beam, bit more control, but still like more forgiving than these types of rackets, right? Like so, good to keep in mind. There's also in betweens. I think that the game is going towards 100 overall, and I think we will see that transition relatively quickly, like over the next coming like 5-10 years, you know.
And if you think about it, like, and if you put rackets like close to each other, like 98s from Babolat and the 100, there's not that big of a difference, like when it comes to the racket head size,
but
right?
but the output I feel is as a big difference.
Yeah, that's true.
That's quite interesting because like if you put like on top, like I don't have a 98 here, but it's like it visually not much, but in tennis small margins make a big difference, right? And the amount of forgiveness in this one compared to like we tried a Tour 98 the other day, it was just a complete night and day, right? Like the pace from mine or your shots when we played with the Tour 98 was like there was nothing on the ball really. Like we would need to slap quite a lot of weight to compensate with the swing weight, while here you can have a more modest swing weight and it still generates power.
Yeah.
So this is a good thing, you know. Like that's what you're seeing with the pros. Like you have Cerundolo and these guys playing with very old-fashioned rackets, like PT57A in this case, from 25, 30 years ago. And he needs to get up to a 380 swing weight to play with these guys on the ATP Tour. To play, I mean, he has a fantastic technique, and his forehand is like one of the better on the tour, I would say. But 380 swing weight, I think he could do more with another racket. That's personally
Yeah,
my
he
opinion.
could get 350 swing weight and play with a modern frame,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then have it more maneuverable and yeah.
And also maybe that will help his backhand a bit, or like
Yeah.
even the serve. So there are other things to take into account. So I think this needs to be thought about for a lot of players on tour. Like we're still stuck in this like old-fashioned.
Yeah. This is, I think the mindset that you're stuck to your old racket is not the thing that we recreational players have. It's like it's very common on the ATP tour. Like the younger players are getting better with this, so they're switching more, and you see more players trying things out, but they're not really like analyzing it, reflecting on it. They're just, okay, Alcaraz is playing with the 98, give me the Alcaraz racket.
Yeah.
I want to hit the same. So.
Yeah, this you have to find like you have to make it more of a process. If you want to switch, you cannot just be like, okay, Sinner plays speed. And I talk to a lot of pros regularly, and a lot of them is like, I want to try Sinner and Alcaraz rackets. Okay, but it might not be the optimal choice for you. Like that,
Yeah.
that's you have to make it more a process. Consult someone who knows a bit, or be open to test like popular rackets from other brands. You know, if you're open to changing sponsor, if you don't have a sponsor, it's easier, of course. But like not only Sinner Alcaraz, because they are rackets that work for them doesn't mean it works for everyone else. You know,
Yeah,
so
and it
this
works
is
for the grip, for the technique, for the footwork, for the muscle memory. Like you cannot just replicate it. You have to find a racket modern racket that suits your game, your play style, your grip, your technique a bit more.
Yeah.
There is adjustment needed, but it has to be like in a reasonable amount, right?
Yeah.
You cannot go from a continental grip to a Western grip and say, okay, now I'm rocking it.
No, not everyone will be able to play well with the arrow, even though they are pro players, because at some point in matches and stuff, like where they're tight, like that ball trajectory, you need to manage it, and it won't be more natural if they're probably playing like a more through the court. Then it would make more sense to have a drive 98 or an east zone 100 or a 98 instead of going all the way to the arrow, right? So you have to think about who am I as a player, what are my strengths, and then what racket could suit those strengths. That's really it, yeah.
I think the one player where you can see where the racket made a big difference is Bublik. He changed the racket, and then all of a sudden he's going to be a top 10 player if he plays like this in a few months.
Yeah, and it's close. It's close. He has had like fantastic semifinals now, and like 4 titles this year already. Maybe, I mean, it's not. It could be sometimes placebo effect. We all know about that, right? But in his case, playing a little bit like wham bam, drop shot, big serve, just having power and that feel of the arrow in his case is works well. Like he should not play with like a control racket. Like it doesn't suit him. He doesn't want to work so hard on the court. Like we can see that already, right? So it makes sense for him to play with this type of racket.
Yeah.
And that unlocked something in his game, right? And in some cases, maybe it's not an easy change to do, but for him it was top notch, right? So probably more changes to come in the pro player scene. That will be interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks, Daniel. I think we covered most of it. I'm keen to hear your questions. We could do a follow-up about this topic or in other topics related to rack. It's a philosophical challenge in a way, right? And we like both like philosophical like topics. So it's interesting to hear your opinions. We're not bashing control rackets. We're just talking from our opinion. He's coming from pro staffs. I'm a prestige lover, but we're like really getting more towards like I need to have a bit easier time on the court, and that's been these types of rackets. So let me know what you are in your racket life right now, and what thoughts you have, and any comments, questions, put them below.
Thanks for having me.
And don't forget to play some tennis.